I just did a $10 million life insurance policy, so I'm waiting for that to get approved before I go get tested for anything.
Why?
Well, because if you can't be going to doctors and expect to be approved.
I was thinking, like, why? You think you're going to just, like, leave the doctor dead?
Jesus. I hope you got that one recorded.
What's wrong with me?
I'll go back to that one at some point. I'm Josh Sigman.
And I'm Brynn Rouse.
I'm a mortgage guy with a passion for money, business, and elevating my game. Brynn is my co-host. She's my friend and marketing director for my mortgage team.
That's right. I'm a marketing girl, a mama of 3, and wife of 1. And like Josh, elevating life, business, and relationships, well, it's my jam.
This season's topic, elevate your game.
What do you want?
Do you want to push personal limits, find joy, be more present?
Be a better parent, have a sexier marriage, make more money, save more money, start your own business, develop a hobby, or strengthen important relationships?
Impact the world, be a better boss, or create a stronger business? Then you are ready to elevate.
And this is the place to do it.
Are you ready? Sigman Sense Season 3, Elevate Your Game. Welcome back to Sigman Sense. We're going to have a good time today. We're going to talk about some, we had an interesting question from a friend of ours who was kind of wondering why people tend to make poor decisions with their time. So examples we can give would be hours and hours and hours of watching TV, or hours and hours and hours of social media surfing, or hours and hours and hours of whatever. Even at work.
Like cleaning the garage or organizing screws.
That's important. Well, that's important too.
No, it's not. Be clear.
That's called men escaping from their wives to the garage.
Which is what makes it not okay. Because it doesn't benefit anyone in the family. You and your screws being organized
you understand
does not benefit anyone else.
I feel like this is we're going to get in a fight here about what men and women.
I will punch you.
So, on that note, welcome back. Before we go further, like and subscribe and share. Find us on Short Sense. What'd I miss?
Nothing. You did great.
Okay, good. But what we're really talking about is, I want to kind of just pull a thread and see what happens with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's really an interesting thought process, and I think there's lots of things we can talk about. A would be why I do think there's a biological reason why people do things. I think there's a chemical reason why people do things would be a second one, and then more importantly, like, how do you stop? You know, I think that we all know when we're doing bad behavior, and sometimes it's just not easy, or it's not worth it to stop doing bad behavior.
Yeah.
And so
a lot of times the bad behavior isn't a bad thing, like the act that you're doing. Like, because I think it's easy to say bad behavior is drinking. Like I just, I sit by myself in my garage while I count my screws and I drink.
I feel like that's very personal.
That's a bad behavior. But like, you could still be like you can overdo anything, even good things.
Yep. Well, why do you think that is? I'm curious why you think that people do that.
Why do I think that people overdo anything in general?
Yeah.
Because it's bringing them some sort of, I don't know if joy is the right word, but it's filling a void.
Okay.
There is probably some sort of relaxant that comes along with it. They've identified it as, this activity is my escape, it's my downtime, it's my happy place. Not being clear about what the cost of doing that activity is. Mm-hmm. Not being clear about what the priorities really are. Not being able to identify when is the appropriate time to count screws and when it's not the appropriate time.
Well, you just said priorities. Yeah, I think that there's probably elements of all that. There's plenty of research in this stuff, right? There's plenty of books about it, and there's plenty of just rational thoughts that we can put together. But I do.
And what are we really talking about, though? Like, because I could easily fall into the time management zone, but I don't think really that's the angle. Maybe pieces of it are time management.
So let's give the 30,000 foot view. I think it's one life to live. And I think you're supposed to do the best with the life you've got, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a spiritual comment. I'm just saying that while you're here on earth, like, make the best of it because you get one trip around the world, or one trip around. That's really a horrible way to say it, because that's not accurate. Hopefully you have many trips around the sun is what I was trying to say. But less than 100 rotations, right? Are you following me?
Nope. all I remembered, or all that came to mind when you said One Life to Live was the soap opera.
That's probably true. You get 100 trips around the sun, right? You get 100 years at best case scenario. One of my good friends, best friends, just died of an aneurysm, dropped dead, taking 2 steps, 50 years old. Perfect health, by the way, just came over. You don't remember your first 5 years? The next 13 to 25 years, you're trying to figure out yourself. Right. You have 10 to 20 years of hopefully good health and productivity and doing something that you're passionate about, maybe.
Yeah.
And then suddenly things start to turn. You start burying your parents, and you get older and you can't do things you might not want to do, or that you might want to do. I'm sorry. You just can't do them physically anymore.
Right.
And the older you get, the more responsibilities you typically have, which removes your choices of what you can do with your day. Like, there's lots of things I'd like to do today, but I've got a family I got to take care of. Yeah. I've got my business got to take care of. I've got my clients got to take care of, and maybe I'll squeeze in myself at some point, right? Yeah. And so my point is that I do think that people fail to appreciate how valuable that downtime is and what they should be doing with it. And looking back, they regret having spent 1,000 hours on a social media platform.
Let me tell you this. Mm-hmm. When I find the rare occasion that I'm going to be alone at my house for any span of time, yep, I'm like, how am I going to spend my time?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Should I catch up on chores? Should I actually sit down and relax? Should I go visit a friend? Oh my gosh, like, what should I do? How am I going to spend this time? It's just like so valuable.
Yeah, and I don't care what the answer is. I think that people don't appreciate how much they actually have. Like, let's look at this. So if you were to say, and this is not, I think this is changing, by the way, this last couple of 10 years, I bet that this point of view has changed. But if you were to kind of draw out what's supposed to happen as you grow up as a kid, supposed to happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you're supposed to graduate from high school. Mm-hmm. If you can, you're supposed to either go get a job right out of high school,
or go to college.
If not earlier.
Yep.
Or go to college. You're supposed to graduate from college in 4 years.
And then you get married, and then you have kids.
Then there's weird expectations, I would say, at least in the past, of you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to have kids, all of a sudden, like, your life isn't your life anymore. And I love being a family man. I love having my kids, but there's a lot of truth to that. I literally
just sent that in a text to someone. Like, I best intention is to be there. However, I'm not really in control of my calendar at this point in life.
Yep, that's right. And so when you start with that kind of thought process in mind, then to me, and I love it, I think this does go very well with the Elevate conversation, then I think it's really important to take the opportunity to maximize whatever time you do have, right? Like, whatever time you do have, are you making the best of it? And so, you can start with the wheel of life always. You can say, okay, well, which area am I weak at that I'm not going to tolerate anymore? Mm-hmm. I want to get better with my spirituality or my health or my wealth or my new business that I'm starting or whatever, or my relationships or my marriage or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great place to start because, when you sit on the couch and you do nothing, it's easy to disguise it's downtime and relaxing, but that's what sleep is for. Like, right. Sleep is go get an extra hour of sleep and be more well rested. And you shouldn't have to take fucking 2 hours in the middle of the day to sit on the couch and watch TV. And look it up while we're looking here. I'd be curious what the average amount of screen time is right now for Americans combined per day. I think we'll be shocked at the answer.
Do you get a report every Sunday? I get a report on my phone.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the tactics is you got to first understand where you're at, track everything, right? So I do believe in finding out I do set up the reports. What is it, by the way? 7 hours. Bullshit.
Wait, say it again. 7 hours a day on TV?
Screen time. So I want you guys to listen to this if you're listening in. The average American is spending 7 hours a day on the screen every single day, okay? So think about they're on their phone for a couple hours, and then they're watching some form of TV every single day, 7 hours a day, 365 days a week, forever. And what you could have done with your life if you applied half that time towards something else. Yes, but that is
making the assumption that everything that they're doing in that 7 hours is unproductive, non-productive activities. That's
is there a way to break up? Yep. Is there a way to break? Well, let's just assume half. Let's take half of it out.
Yeah.
Because let's use our own children. How many hours a day do you think your kids are on their phones or on screens?
Oh. Yeah.
So we're saying it's probably 7.
Or 17.
Right. So you get the point, right? I guarantee it's pretty close to accurate. When you really get down to it, outside of an IT person or somebody that has to look at their computer screen for multiple hours a day, like an air traffic controller, remove those outliers. If it was 5 hours.
Or a social media manager.
If it was 5 hours or 4 hours or 3 hours, it's still too much. And so, I buried my grandmother 5 years ago at this point, right? She was 91 years old. And when I was trying to decide that I was going to do the speaking, I was trying to decide what I want to talk about. And I was on the flight up to Pittsburgh. And when I was flying up there, I was reading some articles. And one of the articles I was talking about is, gives you a visual representation of time spent with somebody you love, right? So my dad is in his 70s. He lives on the West Coast. My mom's in her 70s. She lives in, St. Louis, Missouri. And on average, I'll see my mom twice a year. On average, I'll see my dad once a year. And, my grandmother died at 93. So assuming that nothing tragic happens to my mom or dad or myself, put that in the equation, then let's just say that at the time, maybe there was 70 and there's 20 more years that I get with both of them. That means I get to see my dad 20 more times.
Ew.
I get to see my mom 40 more times.
Ew.
And that was 5 years ago.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
So now I get 15 more times with my dad and I get 30 more times with my mom to ever see her again, to ever see him again. Okay. And so the article said, take marbles and put those marbles in a jar. And every time that you are going to see that relationship again, remove a marble and have that be a representation of don't take this for granted and enjoy the time that you've got, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So when you think of it that way, then screen time or any waste of time in general is really horrible looking back. And I think that's why there's so many angry older people, resentful older people, the people that in general say, I wish I had. I think that's why grandparents appreciate their grandchildren more than it seems like parents appreciate their own children.
Right.
It's because they're trying to get back lost time. And I think that this whole conversation really is about that. So it's interesting that you brought up the time management piece because it is a time thing. It's a lost time thing.
Right.
And so like I said at the beginning, there's chemical and biological reasons why we waste time. But then past that, it's really more important to decide, well, how if I don't want to waste the time I've got, then what are some tactics that we can work on to do better in that area, right? And so you got to start with the biology piece because I need people to understand it's not your fault. It's how you evolved, right?
Meaning we're built to be
meaning all life forms over millennia have evolved in a way to conserve energy. So that when they don't get to eat for the next 30 days, that they have enough energy to survive it before they find their next meal. Okay. Right? So the reason why you see a lion sitting underneath a tree for most of its life is because it doesn't know when its next meal is going to be. So you don't see after the lion eats, they're not running around and slapping hands and kissing ass and having a good time and partying.
Well, that's because they don't have any friends.
They do. That's called a pride of lions for a reason. There's lots of them together, right?
Oh, well, okay. They don't have they don't have any other friends that aren't like them.
Well, they eat them.
No,
right.
That's what I mean.
So, well, I don't know, Lion King, there were lots of friends in Lion King. But my point is that, if you think about that image in your head of a lion sitting underneath a tree, it's because they evolved to feast or famine, right? So if they're not eating right now, then they've got to be lazy. That's the best way to say it. And, you look at this last 100 years, we've created, America for sure is the softest, it's the softest country in the world because everything is, and I'm a very proud American, by the way, but the last 30 years have been the last couple of decades of you can get anything with a push of a button. You don't have to do shit. We don't have to plow fields anymore. We don't have to till the dirt.
Right.
You're not worried about being emaciated or not feeding your kid.
And
It's
I think
just hit a button.
COVID even accelerated that.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I adopted all sorts of stuff that I would never think, like Uber Eats and things like that.
Right. I mean, curbside.
We can be lazy because as we say, convenient is good.
Well,
I disagree. I think that
inconvenience is not real fun.
It's not fun, right? But I think that's why there's so many books that are taking fire about if it's hard, embracing the suck is the way, right?
No, but inconvenient things also lead to inefficient.
No, I think you said that backwards. What did you just say there? Say one more time.
When things are inconvenient, then it can lead to inefficiency. And there's nothing more annoying.
As long as you fill the time that you've saved with something productive.
Right.
But what do most people do is the point.
Well,
they don't have to. They don't have to get up and go get Starbucks anymore. The Starbucks can come to them. They don't have to go to the great.
It's so expensive too.
Guys, it's a problem, and it's not getting better. And so I think it's worthwhile talking about because of that. It's something that has to be addressed, which then goes to so biologically, I'm trying to resist something that I'm hardwired to do. And by the way, this is not a God question. This is not. We're not talking about creationism and evolution. You got a tail and you got a gallbladder. I believe in God. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I'm just being really clear. We evolved. There's evolution is real. And so when you take it to the next step, then you say, okay, well, biologically, I've got some things going on, which goes to chemicals too, right? So we are rewarded when we are, we get high with dopamine,
right? When
we are being satiated with something that we like, right? Mm-hmm. So because scientists are the best and brightest ever right now, and technology has embraced science, the reality is that they can track algorithms and figure out, hey, it turns out that the shorter the unit of time that they can grab your attention, the longer you're going to stay with them, and it's more fun to swipe 30 faces in 5 minutes than it is to watch one face for 5, right? It's just the truth, right? We get that dopamine hit over and over and over. Like, let's get that heroin, let's get that cocaine over and over and over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
So we got some chemical things we got to fight against too.
Yeah.
And so what are some things that you do to make sure that I'm just curious, just off the top of your head, what do you do to kind of get yourself out of a cycle or to stop doing something you think of as, I should be more productive, or what are some things that you do to try to make sure that you stay on task or move forward? I'm just curious.
I don't know. Here's okay. So I don't know how to answer that question, but I'm going to say this, and maybe that'll lead to an answer. It is so nice to have a really good show that you're watching. And here's why. If I don't have something to stop me, then I just keep going and going and going and going and going. If I am into a show, then when everything is done, it's like, okay, I'm going to stop and I'm going to watch my show for a little bit, and usually end up falling asleep or whatever. So for me, it's I will literally go and go.
You're using it to stop your brain.
Yeah.
Okay. How long do you watch the shows?
Are
we talking 20 minutes? Or are we talking 2 hours?
Well, usually I fall asleep. So
is it 2 minutes later or 2 hours later? I'm just curious.
I would say on average, probably 30 minutes before I fall asleep.
So I would say that based on the 7 hours of screen time that the average person's doing, you're doing way better. So there's got to be some things that you're doing to stay busy.
My phone disagrees because, I also, it keeps, if I'm watching it on my phone, which I do a lot of the time, then it keeps playing while I'm asleep. And so
that's your excuse.
It's not accurate information.
All right. So,
what was the question?
Well, let me go backwards then, because I understand what you're saying. I think a lot of people use that as their reason. The rationale is that I worked really hard today, so I'm just gonna take it easy for the rest of the day. The problem is the rest of the day is 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours, right? Most people work maybe 8 hours, maybe. I don't honestly believe that the average human gives a true 8 hours of work in a day. I really don't believe that.
Well, there's a lot of studies about that too.
Yeah, 4 maybe. So we're saying
And that's probably
most of the day is wasted by most people, and those are the employed people, right? And unemployed, if they're not looking for a job, actively looking for the job, it's like scratching my head, like, what are you doing all day?
And that's where the idle mind does the devil's work comes in, for sure.
So let's just kind of go down the things I was thinking off the top of my head. Like tactic-wise, you brought up earlier, you have to track screen time. I think it's really important. Like, don't guess. Like, because we'll always...
But do you get a report every week?
Every single week I get a report.
On Sundays?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So I think Saturday or Sunday.
Mine comes on Sunday. I don't think you have to set that up. I don't...
Well, when you get a new phone, you have the opportunity to set it up. If you don't, then you have to turn it on. I just turned my son's on.
What kind of shit are you sending me? Get this out of here.
No, so the new phones, you automatically have to turn it off, I believe. Okay. I just turned my son's on. And so that's one thing, is just no. And then, it's kind of like the other day I was getting irritated with our spending on food. And so I printed out my credit card bill for January 1st through April 30th. And I divided all money spent on food at home and out, and divided by the number of days in the year so far, to find out how much money we're spending on food on average per day, to see if I had a visceral reaction. And I did. I was like, that's disgusting. That's too much. So all I did was show it to Christy and said, look, I'm not saying that we can't afford it. I'm saying we should do better. Like, if you don't feel good about spending this much money on food every single day, then we need to do a better job. What we were doing was, we were good intentions. We were buying food to eat at home and cook well, and then getting lazy and tired because of whatever shipped from school.
You were doing,
and then we pick up fast food and we'd waste the food in the refrigerator.
There's nothing worse.
It's bad. And
it's so bad.
So my point is that the idea is to get a visceral response. So when I showed that to her, all of a sudden she and I are doing a little bit better job meal prepping and planning and things like that. So when it comes to screen time, you got to track it, because you either feel good about the number or you don't. Like, when you look at it, like, did I really spend 7 fucking hours a day doing fucking nothing?
Right.
Then that should be your first hint. If you're unhappy with your life, let's start with, you can steal back 7 hours to do something with, right? The second piece of the puzzle then would be you can actually limit screen time. So you can literally turn on, a time we can do it for kids, is parental controls.
Do you know that,
What's that?
I could sell our screen time password to my children for the highest dollar amount? It is the most coveted password that exists.
You don't share it
in all the land.
Yep. So
I can tell when they've tried every code, because they get locked out or whatever, and they want that password so damn bad.
Guys, I'm serious about this. It's like, just turn it off.
And they barter time. Like, they'll be like, hey, I have X amount of time left on TikTok. Can I use yours, and I'll give you my...
That's funny.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's really funny. So what she's saying, for people that don't understand what the hell she's talking about, is within each app, you can typically limit the screen time per day, the usage per day.
Yes.
And so that's a great tool that I think is really, really important to do in general, right? It's just limit yourself. Like, what's reasonable? What would you give your kid access to? I've got kids. All of us have kids or the two of us have kids that are in sports right now.
Yeah.
And it's such a head scratch to me when, I won't say any names of my children in case they ever listen to this one day. I've got one of my children that's more addicted to the screen than the others. And this one child really, really, really wants to be good at this one sport. And I'm like, how many hours did you spend on the screen today? And they'll tell me, and they'll say, how many hours did you dribble?
Right.
Like, how many hours did you swing the bat? How many hours did you hit the volleyball? Like, how many hours? And when you look at it, it's like, you had 6 hours after school to do whatever the hell you want to do with. Yeah, you need an hour, maybe 2 hours for homework. But you had 4 more hours, and you chose screen over practice. But you want to be really good, and you wonder why it's going to be tough if you don't make a team, or if you do poorly in a game, right? Mm-hmm. So it goes back to that piece. And so I think a lot of people say they want things in life, but they're really not willing to do what's required to get what they want.
Well, and I think there's a lack. I agree with you, first of all. And I also think that we are not getting any help as parents or a society from school. Like, and here's what I mean by that. So if I want to take KK's phone, obviously we are done with those days. She has graduated high school. Yeah. But if we wanted to take her phone, and we have taken her phone and her computer, she is completely crippled because school has put everything that they need to be successful on an app
Yep.
or on a website. So if you take that from them, there's very few ways for them to get what they need, because even the teachers don't have the printed assignment. So their answer is always, it's on Google Drive. It's on your Google Classroom. It's on the portal. And if they don't have access to their phone or their computer, they can't get to that stuff.
Well, lots of kids don't have computers or phones.
And they rent them from school.
Not everyone, right?
There's
every
a lot.
School, well, sure,
There's
but not every school district.
There's a lot. Well, so if it's a school that doesn't, then they're probably helping. In my experience, it's been very challenging to remove.
To hold the line.
Right, because they, either, or maybe there isn't, and the kids are just telling me that there's no other option. Maybe there is another option. I mean, I guess that's a variable.
Really funny. I'd be very curious for your school.
Right. But everything does lead back to like some sort of app or, and that's how they turn in their work.
Yep.
They upload it to the app.
Well, make it easier and easier and easier. I get it. It's self-perpetuating.
So they're trained to, that's where they go. And in a lot of ways, it's a good thing, right? Like, it's more efficient. It's less paper, all of those things, easier to track, better record keeping. Things don't get lost. So there's a lot of pros to it, but it does create that dependence. I mean, it's a dependency thing that they need their phone to do their work.
Yeah, and I get that. I think it still goes back to, I don't disagree with anything that you said there. I think it still goes back to, there's way more time in the day than people give credit for.
I absolutely agree.
And so why do people just stay stuck doing, and it doesn't have to be screen time. We're stuck on screen time. It could be anything. It could be any behavior that sucks time,
yes,
right?
It could be counting screws.
Shit, I don't care what it is, right? Like, everything's great to a point. Given the opportunity, I would fly fish all day, every day for the rest of my life. Probably wouldn't be very successful if I did that, but I would be happy to do that, is my point. So there's always too much of a good thing is still bad, right? Too much of a bad thing is always bad.
Yeah.
But
my mom
the question then goes to, how do you break the cycle?
Everything is okay in moderation. Moderation.
What I really think it comes down to is the rest of it, which you can break down into 50 different episodes and 50 different books and 50 different podcasts. And it really comes down to, there's no clear purpose. There's no clear passion. There's nothing that is pulling them like a force that gets their ass engaged to move forward, right? Because the powerful chemical and biological background that we have that says, given the option, take it easy, is really as powerful or more so than we give credit for. And so if you don't have something or someone or some accountability or some purpose or passion or mission or vision or something that you're excited about and moving towards, then you're going to get sedentary, right? And that's why I always talk about why goals are so important. Goals are not about arriving. Goals are about moving forward, right? I'm reading this.
Yeah.
What's that?
No, I just said, yes, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, I'm reading this book we were talking about before the podcast, a book by Cameron Hayes. And Cameron Hayes is a world-class bow hunter and ultra-marathon athlete. And he wasn't either growing up, right? So he fell in love with bow hunting, I think, in his 19, 20 years of age, figured out that his survivability rate and ability to go further, farther, longer, to go have the potential of winning in bow hunting would be improved if he was in better shape. So he talks about running a 10K, and what's required to run a 10K is not that hard. Running a 10K is 2 or 3 miles, 3 days a week. You do that for a couple weeks and you'll be able to run a 10K, right? 6 miles, 6.4 miles, whatever it is, 6.6. And he said, so then why do people get excited about or never attempt a marathon? And the answer is, well, it really requires 5 days a week. You got to run 6 to 10 miles a day every single day. You got to have a couple long runs of 15 to 20 miles before a marathon. And then you can maybe run a marathon and do it in a reasonable period of time. And he said, so it's getting hooked on the idea of, while this will suck and it's going to be hard, I'm excited about doing something different. And that makes all the little days, the 3 mile, 6 mile, 10 mile, 20 mile runs worth it because of the pulling force of I just want to get that marathon badge. I just want to get that triathlon badge. I just want whatever, the bumper sticker, right? And you can apply that towards anything. There's people that have a job, and when they look at a small business or a side gig, it's to pay bills. And that's not a horrible thing. Like, that's a really good motivation right up until it's not. And so that side hustle or that side business ever going to the next level always stops at, are you really that excited about it or not? Or is it like, I like to be able to do that full time, but the work and the time that's required is just too hard, right? And so the thing that he talks about in the book that I really like the concept of is, because we know it's a series of bad habits we've created. Like, you didn't get addicted to TikTok in a day or to Netflix in a day. You enjoyed it over a period of time, and that period of time got longer and longer and longer and longer per day if you're listening to this, right?
And here's the other thing that these Netflix, as an example, does very strategically, by the way.
Yep.
It is they have adjusted things within the app that really promote and encourage binge watching. Things like the next episode button appears,
so you just keep on watching,
and you don't. So next episode, click here, skip intro, boom. There's no lag time.
Yep.
In between.
Isn't that interesting? That's very true.
In between the next show, and then they'll ask, like, hey, you haven't touched, if you haven't touched the remote, if you haven't stopped it in a while, it'll say, do you want to stop, or do you want to keep going? You have to like actually make the decision. So within the app,
that's scary to me.
It's promoting.
Yeah. And so that what I like about that conversation then is Cameron talks about the idea of pick one thing that you have to do every single day for a year. Pick one thing, I don't care what it is, but you have to do it every single day for a year. And how many people would actually make it a week or two or three, right? So Hunter Markowitz, a good friend of mine, and he, about 4 years ago, I remember, it was before COVID, so 4 years ago maybe, he was trying to get in better shape, and all he agreed to do was 1 push-up on the first day of the year,
and then
2 push-ups, 3, 4, 5, the idea being to get up to 365 push-ups in a day by the end of the year, right? And the guy saw it through. He got all the way through the entire year. And so I asked him on like January 1st, what are you going to do? He's like, well, I'm just going to keep doing push-ups, right? And
I really like that for a lot of reasons, because where my mind goes is one of the biggest reasons that you wouldn't, or that people don't follow through, is that we go too big. Too early.
Yep.
And it's just too big of a mountain to climb.
Yep.
Like,
that's so true.
It's so true. But like 1 push-up a day, 2, I mean, even up to probably day 25 is something that is still pretty reasonable.
And
like
by day 25, you've got to have it started.
You've got to have it.
You've got to have it started at least.
Exactly. Yep. So like that building block is sound. Like that. I love that. It's really funny. I didn't think about it that way. My I hurt my back, and I'm finally trying to do deadlifts and things like that again here 6 months later. And today was the first day that I got a actual bar with some weight. I'm talking like lightweight. I was probably doing 100 pounds is all I was picking up. And on top of that, he gave me cheater blocks. So I wasn't going all the way to the floor. It was like 8 inches off the floor, 6 inches off the floor, something like that. He had cheaters on both sides. So I'd get in position, pick straight up and go down, but I wasn't going full range, and it was really, really light. And it was so light, and I'm a big guy. If you haven't met me before, I'm like 220 pounds and 6'5". Like 100 pounds is not heavy for me in any normal sense of the word. And so I was doing it, and I did my first set, and I said, hey, can we go a little heavier and get rid of the cheater blocks? And his answer was, look, dude, that's not the point. We're not trying to make you a bodybuilder. We're trying to get your back healthy. And so we're going to add a little bit of weight every week, and we're going to go a little bit shallower every single week, and we'll do it over time, and we'll make sure your back is healthy. And I looked at him and was like, well, shit, I guess that's why I hired you, so I'll just go ahead and do it. And so, but it's the small steps that add up to big things over time. And I also think that's a good, that's why it's good to hire or bring on a mentor.
Seek a professional.
Yeah, seek a professional, because your ass would be friggin'
hurt again.
Correct.
Yeah, hurt again.
You'd be flat.
I'm 25 in my head. For sure, I'm still 25 years old. So tactically, those are a few things. The next thing I would say is this, right? So I can think of 4 or 5 calendar things I've spoken about in previous episodes. I can list off right now for top ways to make sure that you prioritize, downtime and make the best of it, right? And that really starts with a calendar. Like you know this, on my calendar every single day are points of the day for me and only me. They're not a lot of time, but it's time every single day and every single week, right? And so whether it's workout time or go on a walk time or read a book time or go to Bible study time or go to the ranch time, whatever those are every single day, it's on a calendar on a recurring basis. And so I've got scheduled time for me to do what I want to do, but it's a finite period of time too, meaning I don't get 7 hours screen time ever. Why? Because in an hour, I got to go to the next thing.
It's not on your calendar.
It's just not. It's just not, right?
That would be that is the perfect real life example of how to prove to yourself that it's a waste of time. If you are a calendar person, try going in and marking off a full 7 hours for Netflix. Just try it. I wouldn't be able to do that. I would not be able to do a time block for 7 hours.
Trying to think back on my last couple of weeks, including Saturdays and Sundays, there's not a period of time that I had 7 hours.
Right.
No way.
Try to, but even just the act of doing that,
right?
Knowing that I'm going to block this time off to sit on my ass and do nothing. That's crazy. That should create some weird mental imaging in your head.
And that's one thing I got. People have to do. That's why the marble trick works. Go ahead and put in. If I've got 20 more times hanging out with my dad, I guarantee you I'm gonna make those trips fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I love those.
Or do more of them, right?
Or do more, but just make sure. I always think quality is more important than quantity. I love the idea of quantity and quality together, but it goes back to quality time and impactful time are way more important than quantity of time, at home and at work, right?
I do agree that it is quantity over or quality over quantity for sure. But another tactic is man, if you could just make that 3 times a year.
Yeah.
So now you have one more trip and it's still super quality. That's another great.
Here's what's always the answer, right? The answer in the past, I'm throwing myself on the bus, has been I'm too busy and he's too busy. Our two schedules just never match up.
Right.
So it's make the time, figure out the time. So going back to the calendar, right? One of the things that I really think hard about in business, and we've learned this over the years, which I think you can apply at home as well, when you're trying to break the cycle of, hey, I'm spending too much time wasting on whatever, is you have to trade it out for something. So I'll do this instead, or earning it, meaning, let's just give an example. If you want to write a book, you've always said you're going to write a book, but you've got 7 hours of wasted time doing whatever, okay? Then what you would say is, I've got to write for 1 hour to earn 6 hours of screen time. What I would tell you is, over time, you're not going to be writing for 1 hour. You'll end up writing for 2 or 3 or 4 hours once you get things going, right? But that limping in, it's the replacing out for something that you're interested in, but you got to do yours first. What is it that I actually want to accomplish? And then I can really earn this extra time. And you slowly steal back your life. And I really think that that's the right term, is you're stealing back your life, because when you look around at most people, they are wasting every single.
Yeah, and I can remember having this conversation with Randy. It was at a season that we were just feeling man, there's just no time to do anything. There's just no downtime.
Yep.
And really what we came up with, or the conclusion we came to, was that we were just being incredibly unintentional with the downtime that we did have.
Yep.
And so that led to lack of productivity, if you will. But from a family standpoint, getting yard work done, or taking a day trip, with the kids, or driving down river, things that, because we were unintentional.
Yep.
And we didn't have a plan, or we weren't clear about what we were going to do.
What are you doing this weekend?
What are we doing this weekend?
What are you doing this weekend?
What am I doing this weekend?
It's a 3-day weekend, for the record.
Well,
we're recording this
let me look at my calendar.
We're recording this before the 3-day weekend.
Okay, so on the 18th, so we have batting practice from 10 to 11:30, and then a team building event, a video game truck from noon to 2.
10 to 2 or noon to 2?
Batting from 10 to 11:30. 12 to 2 is the team building event. And then from there, we have I actually love this. It's a team event for Weston. One of the dads on the team is, he was a fighter pilot and now he trains. He's a flight trainer. Is that how you say it? He is having all the boys over to the house dressed nice. They have to wear a shirt and tie, and he's bringing in a motivational speaker for them, having and doing a nice dinner, motivational speaker, and then they can
that's not normal. That's awesome.
Is that the
what's the rest of your weekend?
Okay, so that's Saturday. Then Sunday we have it's Father's Day. So we at 2:00 we have to be it says River Chase River Day. So somewhere.
Going to the river.
We're going to the river. I just
okay.
don't.
So what are you doing before 2?
We don't have the address. I don't have anything on my calendar.
So it's really funny to me. One of my biggest frustrations is wasting a 3-day weekend. So if you're listening to this and you work, and all of a sudden you recognize on a Friday that, oh my God, I've got Monday off or whatever, and you have nothing to do. For me, there's nothing worse. I can't, it still blows my mind when people are like, oh my God, it was the best weekend. I did nothing. People get it. There's plenty of people on my team that say that all the time. Yeah. And I'm I scratch my head what the fuck, man? You had 3 days and your answer was you got to do nothing.
So in reality, so if you're asking me what am I going to do before then, the honest truth will be I will be preparing for next week because yes, we do have a holiday. However, the holiday day is full so I won't get that day. I won't get that day. So that morning before we get ready to leave, we'll be preparing for packing for all the stuff that we need to take to the river. And then what do we need to be ready for Tuesday? That's how it'll be spent.
So I think what I was trying to get at is I like the idea of 2 things for vacations or time off in general, right? It goes back to looking forward to something. I've said before, I like to take a vacation every 90 days. I think you can work really hard for 90 days. And then if it's a long weekend or a vacation, doesn't matter to me. But having an extra day off at least every 90 days is super important, right? And then having something actually on the calendar and planned is the key. Because then you get to look forward to it. So Father's Day, I was really clear with my wife and kids. I don't care what you guys want to do this weekend, but it is Father's Day, and we're going to go float the river. We are at the river too, by the way. So we're going to go float the river down in New Braunfels, right? And then past that, I'm going to go to the ranch. I'm going to put probably about 8 to 10 hours on my Bobcat on the ranch because I like manual labor and things like that.
And do you want them to go with you?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course, absolutely. It's Father's Day. I want my kids to be with me.
Everybody feels a little different. It's it's Father's Day. I want to be by myself. And everybody assumes on Mother's Day that we want all of our kids to be around us. And that's just not always the case.
That's really funny.
Just curious.
I think planning things out.
Every day is Mother's Day for me. Thank you. I'm going to have a day to myself.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you said that because here's what we should do. This would be a better answer. It would be let's go early and get there at 10 and do whatever we want as a family before we meet up with the rest of the group. Which then would go to, okay, so if that time was going to be used to prepare for the week, then that we need to make adjustments earlier on in the week. Throughout the week, I can do a little bit here and there to make sure that it's prepared. And then we have a true Sunday that we're enjoying as a family, but then also with the team and the friends and stuff.
So I think your earlier is a tactic, by the way. So my dad taught me this years ago. The earlier is always the answer. We lose time at the end of the day. Things always take longer than we think. I'm always waiting for a girl to get dressed. Hours just drift away in my life, right? It's just the truth. There's songs about this.
What do you do while you're waiting for them? How do you fill your time?
Well, I start by saying that we're going to leave at this time, knowing that we're leaving an hour later.
What you're doing with the time?
I'm packing the last hour because I know that they're not going to be ready, right? My point is that from taking advantage of your days, my days start early. So when I have a vacation day, I I'm the first flight out. I want to be 6 a.m., 5, 6, 7 a.m. first flight out if I'm going on vacation, because I want to get there and enjoy the whole day. It's weird to me that people will take an afternoon flight on a vacation day.
Yeah, that's when you go home.
Yeah, you do go home at the end of the day to maximize vacation. But you apply that same concept towards everything. Like, I think anyone that's listening to this, it will resonate with you thinking, I've got something at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday, so I'm going to wake up-ish whenever the hell I want to, and I'll get some things done. We're not really sure what that is. That is the time that it ends up being totally wasted on screens for sure if there's not something planned early. And so what ends up happening is...
And it's where someone like me falls into the trap of I don't get any downtime, because I said it myself. In reality, I will be doing chores.
Yep.
And that leads to then me being pissed because I'm the only one who does any fucking thing around the house to get everybody ready to go.
Yep. So scheduling that stuff to get started earlier and be done earlier so you have more time for yourself, I think that's the key. The idea in the calendar, the last one I would say about the calendar is the prioritizing you, and you go in your calendar before you can't take care of other people if you don't take care of yourself. And, you know, I've had a team of all women, and I see it all the time. You know, women get the applause. I was going to say shorter than this. It's actually the opposite. They get the applause for, you know, they get to do the primary duties most of the time of child rearing. They're doing primarily at home. They're you know, the chores typically fall on women more so than men. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm saying that typically happens. When there's two working parents and there's a sick kid, typically the mom is in charge of leaving work, which means they're gonna have to get caught up with work to go take care of the sick kid, doctor's appointments, things like that. And we see that most of the time, right? And so when's the time scheduled for you? And the answer is it has to be early, before anyone else can script your days. And that's where I think the best work is always done. I really do find that to be true.
And it's also the hardest, you know. I mean, it's especially for people that are not morning people. Yep,
it's retraining the brain for sure. I was not a morning person ever. Growing up, I was the guy that would sleep until 8, 9, 10 o'clock. And I just started getting up earlier and earlier. And the reason...
Did you just refer to 8, 9, and 10 o'clock as late?
Waking up at 8, 9, and 10 o'clock?
Is that what you were meaning?
Yeah.
Okay.
What did I say?
That's what you said.
Yeah, that's late.
I'm just confirming that you think 8 o'clock is late.
That is late. Holy shit, guys. Like, I see people nodding.
For a 8, week on a 9, weekend? Canon. Is 8 o'clock late on a weekend?
On a weekend?
On a weekend. 8 a.m.
Then does the fucking sun come up? No. Guys.
8 a.m. is normal on a weekend, but it's very, very late on a weekday.
It's extraordinarily late on a weekday. It's still late on
It is not late.
It is late.
Not on a weekday. Not on a weekend. Not on a weekend.
This is where I would challenge me. Like, I'll give you a great example. This is my weekend last weekend. I was on a family vacation with my family up in Winter Park, Colorado. We flew back because I had a graduation party for my dear friend's oldest sons. And we flew back early, got back at 5 o'clock. We literally landed around 4:30, and we picked up a car on the way home because we dropped off a car to be fixed on the way out of town. Picked up the car on the way home, got home, changed, and at 6 o'clock. So an hour and 20 minutes later, we were at a graduation party till 1 o'clock in the morning maybe. The next day, I was up at 7 and did chores all day long until 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, I got changed in 15 minutes. At 6:30, I was over at my friend's house to watch the Celtics and the Warriors play until 1 in the morning.
Did you get your family up at 6 a.m.?
No. Well, my son gets up with me, actually. My son's an early bird. He's up. He actually works out with me sometimes early in the morning during the summertime, which I'm really excited about.
That is good.
But did that till 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning at my buddy's house for the Celtics game and watching boxing. We literally went home at 1 or 2 in the morning. I was up at 5 because my friend was in Leakey, Texas, which is 2 hours away from San Antonio. I drove the 2 hours to make sure I was there before 8 so we could go on the river and check out stuff, have breakfast together, have coffee together. At noon, I drove to my ranch. I got to my ranch around 1 o'clock.
I can't.
I did Bobcat work till 5 o'clock.
Okay.
But here's what I'm saying. Here's what I want people to hear. What if that sounds exhausting you, okay, don't do that much. But somewhere between what you're fucking doing right now and what I'm doing is probably way more productive in life for you, right?
I would agree.
And that goes to the 7 hours.
Yeah.
It's the 7 hours, peel back 2 or 3.
Here's the other thing too that you said earlier, but probably off camera. You said I got too many hours of sleep last night.
Oh, dude.
And it makes you tired.
It's horrible.
Understanding how many hours you need to sleep.
Biorhythms.
I am a 6-hour girl. That's what I need.
Yeah.
Too much, and I'm kind of and too little, and I'm just cranky.
Yep.
Like cranky is not even the
I'm
right
4
word.
to 5. That's all
I'm
I
just
need.
like not on point. Like not cranky, but yeah, understanding like what you really need, and pay attention to it. And I narrowed it down to 6 hours, which was really refreshing. Biologically, teenagers literally need some crazy number of like 15 hours of sleep.
Well,
like-
it starts out as infants.
Like,
Infants
it's
need the most.
great.
It's like 18 hours as infants, and it works backwards, right?
And I think it goes like this. They need a lot and then down, and then it goes like way back up, because teenagers, like all parents, most parents will bitch about how long their teenagers sleep. And it is factual that they actually need that much sleep, which is really, really weird.
Why is it weird to you? Their bodies are growing.
Yeah, I
Takes
know.
energy.
I think it's weird to me that they need that much sleep, because because it seems like the older you get, I don't know why it's weird.
So
maybe it's just maybe weird's the wrong
well,
word. Maybe
just-
annoying as shit is the better word.
Well, I find it to be. I mean, this is where just basic science like is something good to rely on. Like when you're going from a 8-pound baby to a 60-pound child, it takes a lot of energy. Like it takes a lot of energy. So you got to sleep, and then you're in this like middle zone from 60 to 100 pounds for about 5, 6, 7 years, right? And then you have puberty, and when you have puberty, everything's changing. You're growing all sorts of different ways, right? Takes massive amounts of energy. And then you get bigger, and all of a sudden in your 20s you're about the same. You don't need you kind of stabilize, and then at the end of life,
So maybe it's annoying is just the better answer.
it's annoying to you. Got it. But what's interesting is at the end of life too, and it also goes back to learning too. People don't understand how much sleep is needed for the hard drive to cement in your brain, right?
Yeah,
so when it's printing on the protein, yes,
it's brain related. From what I can remember with this study,
they have more blank space and blank disk space to record on, and in order for it to cement, they need more sleep.
Yeah, it is. I do remember it. I don't remember there being anything about like the physical growth being part of what contributes to their need for sleep. It was more about
Mental.
what's happening in the brain.
I'd be curious about that.
Yeah, very, very,
look that one
very
up.
interesting. And then you go to that. I think there's just people that are early, like what it would lions or bears or
Lions or wolves.
lions or wolves. Like I think you have your early risers who are more productive in the morning, and then others that
More
all
productive
the
at night.
ideas start to fire at 10 p.m.
Yep.
Like.
Well, and then the last thing that you add to the mix is, God forbid, we talk about like pharmaceuticals and recreational alcohols and drugs, right? So you've already got your chemicals that are screwing you up all day, every day, and we decide to mess with those rhythms by substance abuse of whatever it is. Like you and I have had, I hate to say it, but I'm on my 6th cup of coffee today. Like that's not normal.
That's because you get up so early. If you get up later, you wouldn't have time to drink that much.
What's funny is I don't need it for energy. I just like the taste.
But there's more hours available to you to have it. That's what I'm saying.
There's more hours available to me. That's probably true too. But
like my brother has always said, if you want to go out, don't go out until midnight, because then you only have 2 hours at the bar. But we're like, well, let's go at 6, because then we'll be home by 10. That shit ain't happening.
That's so funny.
No, now you had 6 to 2.
Yeah, that's a good day. That's a good day. So let's kind of wrap up our final thoughts on this subject, because I really think that it's where I would like people to land on this whole thing is that there's definitely a pulling force that's keeping you in your chair and keeping you doing whatever you think you're wasting time on or bad behavior. You wouldn't be listening to this podcast if it wasn't something you were interested in doing better at, right? So the first answer always for everything, in my opinion, is track everything. So use whatever technology and tools like, it's something as simple as iWatches. What are they called? Apple Watches.
Yeah.
Apple Watches track movement. Apple Watches
man.
track heart rates.
You want your life to be tracked?
Like that's
but
it.
where
You
would
want to
those
get some.
bad boys?
I don't like the idea of being listened to, but the truth of the matter is, like, it's good to know when your heart rate's 200 versus 100. Like, it's not healthy to have a 130 resting heart rate, right? So that some behavior has to change if you're in that situation. When it's all said and done, number one would be track everything, right? Number two is you got to create a pulling force, right?
See,
so
and I think here I want to interject. I think probably like step 2.1 would be really do some thinking about the why, like
which is the pulling force.
Well, that's coming up with something.
Yep.
But the why is different. Like the why is different. Like, why am I wasting all this time? Is it because I don't like my job? Is it because I don't like my husband? Is it because I don't have any ideas of what to do with my kids when I have available time? Is it because I am tired? Is it I think that is because that will be the beginning of a roadmap to finding the pulling force.
So I love that idea. I think cerebral people would appreciate that exercise. I think it could be a stopping point for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's why you're the logic and I'm the emotion.
Right. I'm thinking about what she just said there. I think some people need that.
I think you have to understand the why.
Well, here's what's really funny. So, like, I don't care about whys. I care about how.
I want to know.
You care about the why.
I want to know,
don't.
like, what is causing this? Because if I can understand, like, where it's coming from, that helps me to make choices about my existing environment.
Right.
That are causing me to want to lay like a blob. Right?
See, and I want to drive and then remove, like, the drag. So.
But if you do that without understanding the why, then is it going to be fixed?
No, so here's the thing. This goes back to me, it goes back to head, heart, and gut, right? Like, I'm a gut person. You're a heart person for the most part, right? So
my gut's very, very loud too, though.
Right, I know it is when you allow it to speak, right? If your gut is something that says, I am wasting time, do you give a shit why? Or do you just recognize, like, I'm wasting time, I need to do something about it?
Okay, in that example,
so for me,
that is how I operate. Right.
And so that's what I'm saying for this mental checklist. If the decision is, fuck it, I don't like what the data's telling me. The data's telling me I'm wasting too much time. Mm-hmm. I don't like it. I'm going to do something about it, right? So then the second thing is, once you've tracked something, then you've got to figure out the tactics of what can I do to break the behavior or take steps moving forward. I liken it to, I want the ship to start moving, then I'll cut the bow lines, then I'll cut there's a net wrapped around the propeller, I'll get some stuff out of the way as I keep on going, right?
Yeah.
But I want to start moving forward, and that usually does not require a lot of effort, right? We use the analogy of do 1 push-up today and 2 push-ups tomorrow and 3 push-ups the next day. Like, just do something.
Yeah.
But start that progression forward is really what's really important. Yes, I think that ideally we should all have the purpose and a why we do anything. There's 1,000 books about it. I've found with hundreds of conversations, and I know you have too, that most people struggle with that. Like, coming up with a why for anything or a purpose for anything outside of it's for me or for my kids or for paying the bills. For most people, that's where the thought process starts. It's why it's very difficult for people to move the needle. When you talk to or listen to a guy like an Elon Musk, he's very clear about what his purpose is, right?
By the way, do you know the name of his child?
It's a number. It's a weird number. Yes. So the answer is no. But yeah, he's a weird dude, but he's a brilliant dude.
Dying laughing. Yeah. We were like, his name is XAE12 or something like that. I was like, anyway.
Letters and numbers, yeah. Yeah, so, but when you've got somebody like that that's a visionary, like, the answer is to make sure that we're a multi-planetary civilization to save humans from eradication. Like, when you think about it like that, it's like, well, that's pretty powerful. That's a good reason to wake up in the morning, right? And so somewhere in between here and being him is probably the right answer.
And I love
but I find that's a stopping point for a lot of people, which is, I don't know why I'm doing it. So stop asking why. Gives you a reason to not do, right? For me, it's how. It's like, I don't like this, so how do I move the needle? And that's the pivotal question. How do I move the needle in a positive direction? Because all of us intuitively know what we could do to move the needle in anything we want to do, right? If we want more business, tell me 3 things you could do to get more business. 3 things off the top of your head, go.
Call more people, see more people, and ask for more business.
Weird, fucking weird. Everyone can come up with 3 things on the spot, right? Yet I got a call from a business guy that's been in business for 22 years. Talked to him yesterday afternoon. He wasted my time. He called me up and said, hey, I'm moving markets. I'm a loan officer, and I've got to meet new realtors. I was like, you've been a loan officer for 22 years? He said, yeah. He said, yeah, I want you to tell me what to do and say to meet new realtors. I said, what the fuck you been doing for 22 years? Like, just do that. Like, whatever that was, and you're still in business 22 years later, that works. Like, don't call me and ask me, like, how to do it. Like, just do. And so I want you to think about that. The truth of the matter is, if I want to work with more realtors, it's call agents I don't know, meet 100 agents in the next 100 days, ask for business specifically, and never sell over the phone, sell it face to face. Like, just start there. If I want to lose weight, get on a scale, move my body vigorously for 30 minutes to an hour, eat less eat less calories than I expend daily. Like, really good idea. If I want to learn a language, I don't know, I almost said tape. Yes, I'm older. Listen to what's a tape or CD or anything about language in the car. Every time you get in the car, instead of listening to music,
or get your phone out and put the app on it.
I don't care what the answer is, but you came up with an answer, right?
It's going to increase your screen.
You got. Hey, instead of listening to music when you get in the car, no, I love this. Instead of listening to the music when you get in the car, every time you get in the car, it's that replacement idea.
Yes,
when I get in the car, instead of listening to music, I will only listen to Spanish, so I can learn the Spanish language.
So with car time, if it's during business hours, which I consider like 8 to 5, 6, then it has to be a podcast or a YouTube video or something like business related. And then any of the time outside of those hours, I can listen to music and all that.
Well, and that goes back to the tactic, which is replacement and doing one thing before you allow yourself to do something else, right? It's the creating time, which means using a calendar. I don't care if you don't have a calendar. Like, just use the calendar. Like, there's a smartphone, there's an old granny phone. My wife still uses a paper calendar.
Yeah.
Just use a damn calendar. You'll be more productive.
Write in pencil.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the concept then becomes the frequency of measurement is going to increase your results. The steering is going to get you further faster than thinking about it. But what I would end with is there's only so many damn marbles in the jar of whatever you have left.
Right.
So if you're not moving the needle towards something that's important, especially if you don't like where you're at and what you're doing, you got to start because there's only so many damn marbles left.
There's only so many marbles left.
So I don't know. I know that's more of a philosophical conversation. I think at the end of the day, like, it's about being happy, not satisfied. We haven't used that term in a long time on this podcast. My wife one time told me, man, it must be exhausting to be you. I said, why do you say that?
I agree.
And she said, right.
Look, everybody heard what he just said, right?
Yeah. She said, it must be exhausting to be you. And I was like, no, I'm not. It's not exhausting at all. She said, well, it doesn't seem like you're happy. And I'm like, no, be really clear. I'm really happy, but I'm never satisfied with where I'm at because I assume I can do better.
Yeah.
And it's that pursuit that matters to me.
It does. And I think, a lot of times people that listen to an expert in some area think that, okay, well, that's how I need to structure my weekend, is what Josh just described. Well, for me, that would make me miserable. So
to me, it was an amazing weekend.
Finding what your perfect
ideal
balance looks like, you know, and for me, it is a mixture. I like to have some fun things, and then I like to have some downtime where everybody can rest their bodies. We can watch TV, we can do, whatever. And then mix in, we're going to go here, we're going to go there. That's my perfect mix. But
it's improvement.
Finding what it is. Yeah.
What should never come out of anyone's mouth is I don't have time for it.
You are correct.
That's what should never, the assumption is there's always time. Make the time, prioritize the time.
There actually is time.
There is for sure time.
There is for sure
Wake
time.
up an hour earlier, go to sleep an hour later, do more with what time you've got. Stop doing shit that you shouldn't be doing.
Yes, be more selective with what you're choosing. If the things you're doing are making you not happy, then, or the people you're surrounding yourself with, you got to change it.
Yep.
Got to change it. Stop doing it. Eliminate the crapola.
It's an interesting concept. It's funny. I started thinking while we were on here about I could do better on my counter. I could get more. I can squeeze more in, believe it or not. So I'm going to do a better job.
Yes, you're going to have to wear a diaper.
Bathroom breaks.
Or delegate pee breaks to someone.
That's right. Or just get a commode in my office.
Just sit on it. That'll be your chair.
I think that's enough. We must be delusional. So, thanks for joining us again.
Yes, thank you so much. Remember to subscribe, tell your friends. Tell us what you think. What do you think about this? Like, are we crazy? I mean, we all know Josh is a little cuckoo. So, but where do you fall? Where do you fall in this category? So we want to hear your thoughts. And thank you for listening.
And we'll see you next time, guys.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.